Welcome to Content Content with our new crazy intro.
Lecka hi,
Make a
hi,
hiney
ho.
ho. Lecka hi, make a hiney ho. That is our new intro. So what do you think, Derek?
I thought it was great, man. And you're right, the music's still playing in the background. I think it seems pretty legit, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's working out. So, a small step towards improving the show and getting a little bit more professional.
That's correct.
And still working on my lighting in here. I didn't pay any attention to the lighting today. So,
Well, you tried to revamp the whole setup yesterday, Mike, so...
yeah, everything is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I was trying to simplify. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna go off here.
Yeah. And we'll get a
what I can do a
couple
little
extra
bit.
lumens in the
Yeah.
morning.
Let's see. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
I got a little
okay,
bit,
yeah,
little
that's
something
good.
there. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on here.
I'll tell you, what a real life lesson. There's real spiritual teaching. Haven't we all been like, you know what? I got to break this whole thing down. I'm just going to try and set it up in a different way. And then you realize that's even more difficult. So you're like, then you appreciate what you've had previously.
Yeah, like I am
And you
right
say,
now. I'm just like, oh man, what did you do? You
Right,
ruined
you know what?
everything.
Maybe I should just put it back to the way that it was because it was fine that way.
But I will tell you, this is nice. I didn't have to do fade outs.
Yeah, I
I
know.
didn't have to do anything. It's like autoplay, which is kind of nice.
I thought it was great, and not for nothing, but the samples they sound pretty damn good in the theme song there.
Yeah, I love it. And for anybody who missed it, maybe let's run it in the middle of the show if more people show up. What do
Yeah,
you
there
say?
we go. Yeah,
We'll run the
In the middle
intro
of
and
the
we can get some
discussion.
comments on it. And we got a good morning already here from John. Let's see.
Morning, Johnny. He says, "Coffee, Steve Winwood, and chasing Miles down the hall." Just saying.
Ah. Oh God, listen, I love those videos with Miles. They're so,
Convos with Miles.
oh my God, convos with Miles. I love them so much.
Well, we got to get Miles on the show at some point.
He's so agreeable,
He is quite
right?
agreeable.
It's like,
Children have a tendency to be very
Yeah.
disagreeable. I think
it's like,
not Miles.
yeah, right. Miles is just so chill. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is because he doesn't completely maybe know what you're talking about,
But that's neither here
but
nor
that's
there.
fine. Yeah, that's fine. I'm on the same side as you, Derek. I'm like, that's actually perfect.
Yeah.
We should throw some convos with Miles into the, now that we're rocking with videos and stuff.
Yeah,
we
right.
can do little convos with Miles. Listen, John, if you're willing, you can give us some segments. That would be dope, actually.
Because we could take one of those videos and extrapolate an entire essay on it,
And yeah,
on its
and,
life principles.
and if anyone's gonna get the viewership up, it's gonna be Miles.
People love babies.
I mean, that kid is so adorable. I mean,
People love adorable babies like Miles.
yeah. So I think it's win-win. And you could even talk about your podcast. You'd be like, "Do you like John's Lonely Podcast?"
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
actually, that's something we never thought about. That
What's
we
that?
could cross commercial within podcast.
A podcast in a podcast.
No, like sort of like do a commercial, like for someone else's podcast.
Oh, you want to sell our souls?
Yeah, pretty much. Why not? I think we're at that
Everyone
point.
else does it.
So why not? Listen. I need to hire a lighting person. Look at me. I'm like, I got like this.
No, it looks great, man. Come on. It's just the hat. But I mean, you look great in the hat, so we're not going to lose that.
I do the hats
Otherwise-
just to pick out the episodes. I know. Oh, I got that. Oh, that's that episode.
I will say our wardrobe department is really, the budget is lacking over there.
Yeah, for sure, man.
We got to hire some
hoodies.
makeup people and some production folks and whatnot.
Oh,
Yeah, we got to talk about that at the next business meeting. Mike, how you doing? How was your week?
Week was it was a good week, I guess. Just I guess the run of the mill pandemic week, but plus snow.
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I was going to say. To me, I felt like this week and last week actually were an eternity. And I think for me personally, it's just quarantine going on and on, plus snow, plus cold and winter going on and on at this point.
Yeah.
Plus, we're at least in the Northeast and in many parts in the country, we're having a real winter again, which we
Yeah.
have
Who
not
asked for
had.
who put that order in?
I kind of thought like we had reached a
Yeah.
certain threshold of climate change where we just weren't going to have real winters anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I mean,
selfishly, I didn't.
who put that order in, man? I want to
They're
talk to that
terrible.
guy. Was that you, Derek?
I was the last guy
Was
to
I
ever
wonder if it was
recommend anything like that.
any of our like serious meditators, like that we've maybe had on the show or something, just made
Possibly.
that happen or something.
And they are now my mortal enemy, and they will never be back on the show if indeed they did. They did
Yeah,
that.
don't do that again, guys. Whoever did that.
But I'll tell you what though, Mike, is I did now with restaurants and things opened. I performed on Monday night
Oh, cool.
in a little club, and everything was socially distanced. And I personally did terrible, but I think that's a result of not doing it for quite a long time.
Yeah, well, that happens,
I was
right?
like nervous in weird ways, made mistakes I never do.
Wow.
And
So
yeah,
what you're
I
saying
just
is
get rusty.
the show hasn't helped your performance at all.
I wish that it would. It appears not
It didn't. No, it didn't. One year of talking.
You would have thought,
you would have thought maybe you'd get up there and feel even more
to.
comfortable now that
I
you're
got the flow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm talking for
But
an hour.
no.
I was supposed to do 5 minutes. No big deal.
not at all. It didn't happen.
Completely. No, it didn't
So
happen.
real life is much different.
I suppose so.
There's proof. There's proof where you can hide behind this camera in pandemic life, but
Right.
real life is coming for you.
It's coming for you.
Coming for you.
And, I mean, we've talked about this kind of thing a little bit before, but it's like, well, with the pandemic and stuff, like you're never going to be able to just like flip a switch and have everything be back open and be like, you know what? It's over. Woohoo! It was always going to have to be this kind of like slow build. First this, then a little bit of this, then a little bit of this. And
Yeah.
in a way, I feel a bit upset about that because I want when things do come back, and this will kind of happen in the summertime, I think. I want there to be a like the opposite, all the despair that we've been feeling during the quarantine. I do have that flip over to be like, wow, I'm so happy and glad that I can see people again, that I can go outside, that I can go to a bar, that I can go to a patio, that I can see some live music or whatever. But obviously, like I said, you can't just flip that switch.
Yeah.
But it does seem like better for better for worse in terms of the numbers and the statistics regarding COVID, which unfortunately seem to be just as bad as ever. That the reopening has begun. Again, Governor Cuomo, probably against medical advice, said that, Valentine's Day, things are going to be open again. So here we go, Mike.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, I it's still, it's still weird for me. I think I don't know. It may be more weird for me than most people. Met up with my son in the city real quick. I had to give him something, and we walked around Grand Central, and everything was closed, and it's kind of weird, Like, so I hung out with him just for a little while, and it was like there was really nothing we could really do,
Yeah.
And I had all those years, if he ever ended up in school in the city, I had all these ideas of stuff I'd do with him, like I'd meet him after work, and it's kind of like one of those many things that we kind of looked forward to that change, and it's not that, and it's different, and who the hell knows how long this is going to go
Yeah, I
on.
know. I was thinking, just briefly, I was thinking to myself
Morning,
yesterday. So, hey, Anna, and I'm sure everybody has kind of like people like this in their life, but I have some friends back home who, at this point in our lives, like we primarily see each other going to concerts and things, and like going to a
okay.
festival over the summer. So of course, last year that didn't happen. Maybe I would see them over the holidays, but of course, everybody had to stay home.
Yeah.
And even this summer, like I don't know if there will be concerts. I certainly hope there will be. Obviously, there can't be concerts to the extent that there ought to be or normally is. So the next time that I see those friends of mine, let's say 2.5 years will have gone by where I have
Oh
not
boy.
gone that long from seeing those people. And we talk on the phone a little bit and stuff, but it's like when I see them in person eventually,
I think I know where you're
like
going with this.
what is there going to be to say about it? It's just like a it's like somebody took the timeline of life
Yeah.
and just snipped out 2.5 years and
You
was
made
like,
me
yeah, that doesn't count now.
you
It's like,
as
what am I gonna say to this person, to my friends about this? Hey man, what have you been up to?
yeah.
The COVID thing.
As
Yeah,
you
it
often do,
sucked.
man, you made me think of something I never thought of,
What's that?
which is, how we change. We've talked about that. I think, there's that 7 year thing that people speak of. There's the thing my dad told me. There's, we just change. Whatever. Is it every 7 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever? Maybe for some it's different.
Mm.
So what I just thought of is that the people like that you only see in concerts. Next time you see them, they may be a completely different person.
I
For all
know,
you know,
which makes me worried because I
it's like,
liked him
hey, what's
before.
going on, Joe? Hey, what's up? And he's like, oh yeah, everything's cool. And then he starts talking about stuff that he never used to talk about,
I know, and
and
if
he's into
anything,
stuff that you're like, what? You used to hate that, really? It's like Joe's someone else. It's like because you didn't go through the process, you didn't.
right? We weren't there. We weren't
Yeah,
in the process
yeah.
together.
So just this brand new group of people are gonna show up, and you're just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, if anything, people have had time to stay home and research and get into
yeah,
things they didn't have time to previously,
yeah.
um, and
Derek,
that could be
can
strange.
can we play the intro again? We got 7 people watching. I want to show off the intro. Is that all
the,
right?
the re-intro.
The
Okay,
re-intro. Can we
and
do
then when
that?
it kicks back in, we'll do a little recap and we'll really get going. Go for it,
All
Mike.
right, then here we go. Here we go, guys. We have a new intro, and I'm a little excited about it. So I wanted to play it because we played it in the beginning of the show, but it takes a little while to get people on people got to get notified and stuff. So here we go. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Huh? We're gonna go here.
Hand in mine, there ain't no hill or mountain we can't climb.
Time to make the donut. Time to make the donut. Time to make the donut. Time to make the donut.
All right. So welcome to Consent Content again. So this is the good morning.
I think we should
twice.
play it every 10 minutes. It has a nice throw back into us.
It just
I
gets
quite like
it
that.
just gets things going, man.
I'm actually too young, I think, to remember the donuts guy. Time to make the donuts guy.
Wow, that's awesome.
I could be wrong about that. Maybe I just.
No, I think you
don't
might
remember.
be because that's early '80s.
Is it? Well, yeah.
From what I
yeah,
know.
it's-
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably maybe before you were born. What were you, 80 something ish?
I was born in 1990.
Oh my God, forget about
Yeah.
it. That's way before your time, Derek. You're just a young whippersnapper, man. So
I was in a
hope-
different incarnation during those donuts.
and it's so cool. Here, props to StreamYard because it's so cool. I can even do the level. I just eliminated a whole nother piece of equipment.
and,
I'm so
and
happy.
what a lesson that is, Mike, in simplification and
Oh my God.
synthesizing.
Yeah, man.
Well done, sir. Well, let me say this, Mike.
Mhm.
Last week, well, first off, Anna, I didn't mean to do that. I was born in 1890. I'm sorry, did I mention that? Sometimes I get my things.
Well, let's
had
not
a
get
lot of
into
work
all,
done.
all the past lives. And who were
That's
you?
true.
And I remember I was in that episode when was it Thomas Merton?
Oh,
the
yes,
monk?
that I
And
might
I
be Thomas
insisted
Merton.
that you might be him, man. I felt like Because man, when you describe Thomas Merton, man, I was like, damn, man, that sounds like Derek would do that, man. It just
I
sounded
might
so
be Thomas
Derek-ish,
Merton
man.
reincarnated.
It's possible, man.
I said this to you a couple weeks ago now, but I only recently read about Thomas Merton, who, if you haven't heard of the guy, he was basically like a Christian monk. And in the 50s and 60s, he was known for a book called The Seven-Story Mountain, which is about kind of disillusionment in the, sorry, Steve, if I made you feel old. Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. He wrote The Seven-Story Mountain, which is very popular amongst World War II GIs who are obviously disillusioned with the material world. So then in the 50s and 60s, the early 60s, Thomas Merton began to kind of bridge the gap, not dissimilar from Alan Watts, between Zen Buddhism, some Hindu things, some Taoist things, and Christianity, and maybe to like infuse some new kind of energy into Christianity, which it may have needed at that time. And then he mysteriously died in Thailand. And there are like a series of books regarding the mysterious way in which he died. Some people initially they were like he had a heart attack, and then it was found out that he was like electrocuted, maybe.
I have a
And the
theory.
whole thing is very shady.
I think he time traveled into our time, and he started working at a big government organization in New York City.
That may well be the case. I'm going to have to do some communing with the Lord later to figure that out. That's neither here nor there. Mike, let me jump into a little bit of a recap last week. Well, first off, a big thank you to Bobby Bishop for being on the Wednesday late night show.
Yes.
Mike,
Thank you, Bobby.
it seemed like a good episode. It seemed like you were having fun on that one.
Yes, definitely. And I just anybody who's got kids in school right now, I think it's a great episode to watch. He really we talked a lot about that, about what's going on in the schools. He's the social worker / therapist one for the whole school in Lynn, Massachusetts, and great guy. And we talked a lot about that stuff. And I think go back and watch that. It was great for me and Erica. We have Daniel, who's 13, who's doing homeschool. He's doing hybrid, and it's hard for everybody. And it's most of the episode is on that. Of course, we talk about some other stuff too, but I would say a good 30 minutes of it is about that.
And wow, he's the only therapist for the whole school.
Yeah.
That guy has been drowning in work.
And something
for a
interesting
year.
too that I'd like to say, which I learned about in that episode, was they have a lot of, I believe from Guadalupe, I'm pretty sure he said, a lot of students who come without parents because of there's a lot of war breaking out and their lives are threatened. So there's a program, and apparently his school gets a lot of those kids.
No kidding.
And that was fascinating too. And then also he was talking about, on top of pandemic, on top of everything, they got these kids who already were in a difficult situation.
Right.
So that was super interesting. Great episode. I highly recommend anyone to jump on that.
Yeah, and thanks to Bobby for coming on the show. All right, so what we had kind of left off with a little bit last week, Mike, was sort of the limits of language. That language is generally regarded as like a tremendous development in human history, and in many ways it is. It helps us learn about history. But, whether it's the fact that there are tons of different languages, so it makes it difficult for people of different cultures to communicate with one another, or the fact that you have, we had a friend, I believe, from the UK chiming in on Twitch last week, like this partitioning of information in the academic world that is not accessible to, let's say, regular middle and lower class people. And so how much is that actually helping if we have, the academics are completely in a bubble unto themselves, talking about things that regular people wouldn't even understand.
Yeah.
And then it's a dicey decision about, well, what gets filtered down and how is that framed? And by having all these different options, all these different words, all these different languages, it theoretically allows people to communicate better, but it also opens up a multitude of abilities to partition what it is that comes down and how things are talked about. And as we've talked about with religions, well, because they are the most powerful teachings in terms of they regard a higher spiritual power. So, well, gosh, um, that can be so serious, and you can wield a lot of power. So the power structures that exist really get into religion as quickly as they possibly can, because look at all the stuff we can do with that. So the question then is, well, why is it difficult to describe something in a simple, straightforward way? And some of it has to do with the fact that what you had mentioned last week about, I believe, the Algonquins refer to a lot of things that we would call nouns as verbs, which, of course, in a nice synchronicity, we talked about this in chapter 4 of the book, Alan Watts on Tuesday, where he was saying, and as they had mentioned too, that a person is a series of actions is like a whirlpool. There is a center, but the things in and out of it are constantly changing. And that you are not a man, but you are manning, who is running, living. You are not necessarily a rock, but you are a process. And Watts said, well, we can't, he's not suggesting that we refer to everything as verbs. That's a bit clunky, but the idea that we are one solid center, one individual separate from everything, and we must conquer everything around us in order to signify some sort, is foolish. And what he
Wait, you mean that's wrong?
I'm afraid that it is, Mike,
Oh, crap.
despite what we've been told. And I really thought about a lot this week. The end of chapter 4 in Watts there, he's saying, and he's quoting some quantum physics kind of things, which was interesting that he was talking about quantum physics in
He was
1966.
so ahead of him. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And the way he talks about technology is like, of course, way before the internet, but he's basically predicting the internet.
Yeah.
Crazy. But one of the things that I had forgotten that he said in there is that it's not so much that you, a person, is one piece in the whole supercomputer that is God. It's that you are all of it. And like we've talked, I mentioned this before on the show, but the idea of like the ant. Well, you think of an ant as a singular unit of a little tiny thing, but also it lives in an anthill. It lives in a community. It's affected by the environment that it lives in. When it gets cold out, it might go in your kitchen. Okay, now all of a sudden you're part of this ant. You're cohabitating.
Yeah.
You're dependent on one another. If you leave crumbs on the counter, well, that's their food. And everything is so tied in with one another. And then to take that even further, I know that there's like a theory in quantum physics that, because one of the most difficult things that's can push back against the idea of this tremendous interconnectedness is, look, I have a body though, okay? I end right here. I got the skin suit, and this is me. This is and then I have to interact with all this crap that's out here. So, logically, intuitively, I seem to end right at the end of my nose. Quantum physics theorizes, and again, these things are being more and more proven every day, that we have basically like an energy field, or our protons, neurons, whatever, I'm not a scientist, extends about like a foot outside of us. And some scientists say it even extends like 4 to 6 feet outside of us.
Yeah.
So given that, again, according to quantum physics, we're all manifestations of vibrations. And we're all kind of like this whirlpool of energy.
Yeah.
And we kind of have still point within us, but we're all this stuff flying around it all the time. Could you imagine if our vibes, let's say, are extending 6 feet outside of our body? Do you imagine 10 people standing in a room and how they're interacting with one another in ways that we don't even, like, in conscious life, conceptualize?
Yeah. I mean, we can all attest to a person who walks in the room who completely changes the energy
Yeah.
There are certain people that are that their energy is so different, and it makes actually it goes both ways. It can be someone whose energy is so positive
Hmm.
that when they get there, it's like, hey, it's things kind of change, or it can be so negative that it's like, oh boy, not this guy.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. What's he gonna do now? So it's interesting, and man, as usual, synchronicity, right? I was unintentionally, you know, reading stuff, and it goes right with what we're talking about. One of the things you spoke of, which the energy, in the book I've been reading about the Native Americans, the indigenous, they speak of a an ability by color to see that energy, and yellow, red, these colors, and their medicine man, shaman, whatever you want to call it, their spiritual people, their priests, whatever you want to call it. They would actually, excuse me, have like just these bags that they would kind of collect of things that identify with this type of aura or this type of energy. And they were very, very, it's interesting because everything, we have this extreme kind of society where it went extreme. It went very individual. It went very, and you talk about the body. They talk about it as a robe. So when you die, you drop your robe. So they just, and it's, there's oneness that Watts would get along very well with a tribe. If they could speak, he could have, let's put it this way, he could have traveled through time, and if he could speak their language, he'd be right on. He'd be right on with them, because everything he talks about in a very intellectual way, that we can kind of grasp because of where we're sitting right now with language and stuff. It's very, very much in tune with what I'm learning about the Native Americans, about this extreme oneness. It's changed. That book is really changing how I see things. It's changing me, to be quite honest with you. I sat down to eat beef stew yesterday, and for the first time in my life, like, normally I thank God for the food, because like, just thank you for that, and it's that's something I'm used to. But I never thought about, people think they're hooky and weird, but none of it is like, none of it, there's deep intention behind it. It's not like they're not just doing weird stuff to be like, oh yeah, there's intention. They thank the animal because the animal sacrificed themselves for me to live. Like, that's how connected they see. And when you go back to language, they're seeing it's fascinating because they learn from the animals. So you have like me, I always wondered, like, how the hell do they know if you take this leaf, that leaf, and that leaf, and boil it in a pot of hot water and make a tea, you're gonna, the hives or the stomach pain, the headache, you're just gonna feel better. And they learn that because they're so in tune with the animals. They'd see a sick animal, they'd watch it, and whatever it ate to feel better, then they'd say, there you go.
Let's have some of that.
So that's why they're so into the earth, because it taught them so much. And that's why they feel so connected, and so grateful to animals, and why they don't just haphazardly go, shooting 1,000 buffalo just to starve, a group of people or something like that. They can't do that, because they just, even when they pick food, like if they take fruits, they never take all of them. They take enough, and they know to leave, a certain seed, a certain this. so it can keep going. And even they feel that the plants communicate by their colors, by so the reason I'm talking about that with language is because I think we limit ourselves by thinking language is just this, what I'm talking to you about right now. And remember, and even science says, what is it? A small percentage is of communication is words, right? Most of it is body language, all this other stuff. And so it's really, we words are powerful, but they're not everything, and they're listening, in their lives and everything to the trees, the animals. They call forgot in the book, I think they call them the grandfathers or something, the trees, and they're like alive. We know they're alive, but I mean they're like, they have this different connectivity with the earth, with everything. Even when they you think they do this peace pipe thing, but I read the complete explaining of it, and it's actually quite beautiful. Tobacco comes from the earth. They don't smoke it leisurely, like like where we do, and people get sick, and they don't just go for a smoke break. Like it's something they don't do all the time, and it's a part of connecting with nature because it's part of nature. They put it in, they smoke it, and even the pipe has meaning, and then they take in the smoke, which is the air from the earth, breathe it in, and then it's communing with them, and then they breathe it out. So it's like this whole process of spiritual connection. It's not just, and that's what I'm learning. It's like eating. These things we just take for granted, like to feel, like I eat because I love the way it tastes or something like that. But they put this extra dimension to things, like not just to feel good, but there's a whole thing to think about when you're eating, where it come from, the benefits of it. It's just remarkable. I mean, and it's so different, whether I think, if anyone watching or anything, and me and Derek, we go into different stuff, and whether you agree with something you're reading, it's really important to go into other cultures to see, if you can't visit and hang out with these people, we don't all have that privilege and money. If you read about different cultures, I mean, just to see another perspective, it's mind blowing. It will change you. A book, many books, books constantly are changing me. Just constant. It's like, and another thing too, back to what you were talking about, in the recap of this dense language, that the academics have. And it's true, they have, and I'm not saying it in a way where they're doing it on purpose, but there is a separateness, and it even takes someone to read like that guy you sent me that book. What is I ordered it because you were reading Gurdjieff.
George Gurdjieff, yeah.
Gurdjieff.
Yeah.
I mean, damn dense.
He's out there.
He's
Yeah.
but it's packed with some jewels.
It is.
But it takes kind of, I would dare say, like, it takes like someone who can really get into that, and then they have to write a book about him
To boil it down a little bit.
to give me something.
Yeah.
And then I feel like after reading a book about him, then I can go back and read him.
I could maybe get it. Yeah.
Now I might get it.
Yeah, there were not insignificant portions of that book where my eyes just kind of rolled over and I was like, okay, man.
Yeah, but I knew it was like, it was just like, it's almost like, I don't know, you got to be in the circle. He's got these disciplines. He's in these groups with people, and that's why people. I think that's why people like Ram Dass or like, other spiritual people who become spiritual leaders and inspirations for others. I think that's why they might get they might read a book like that about someone like him, and I think that's why they'll fly away to India, because they knew there's something there and they can't quite grasp it,
Yeah.
and the only way to really get in there
I just gotta figure
is
it
to
out for
hang out
myself.
with these guys. Like I kind of get what you're saying, but man, I need to hang out with you because that's the only way.
I have more questions about this.
And then that even brings us into community, right? Now we're getting into like, how do you really understand someone, where they're coming from? Like, I can read a book. It reminds me of Good Will Hunting. That scene where
He's yelling at the guy.
where Matt Damon, he's brilliant. He can read a book in 30 seconds. He's just one of those rare humans. And he's sitting there and he's in the office with Robin Williams, and they're like, he's looking at all the books. He's probably you probably read all these books, because he's always sizing people up. And then he kind of makes Robin Williams feel like crap because his wife died. He looks at the painting, he takes it apart. So he's this really intellectual guy. And then Robin Williams, next day he has to think about this a lot. Then he sits down with him and he's like, you're a really smart guy, but if I asked you about love, you'd probably quote Shakespeare. Or if I asked you about war, you'd probably, talk to me about this. If I asked you about art, you'd probably quote, this. But have you ever sat there and looked at the Sistine Chapel in awe? Have you ever loved someone so much that you just would do anything for them and you couldn't live without them? And, and that's what I feel like, at the end of the day, all these things, it has to be experience at some point. You have to, even my little thing, sitting down to eat dinner, I could read that book and I could intellectualize it and try to be a smart guy and say, well, the natives did this and that. But the real thing to me is to sit down when I eat my dinner and think about that animal. That's the real meat, no pun intended.
Quite literally.
But it was some damn good beef stew.
I don't
Thank
doubt
you,
it.
Erica. I messed it up a little bit, but we won't get into that. But it was still good, and I think that's the key to everything. Experience.
I completely agree, man. And in a way, that is a big fallacy of perceived intellectualism is who has more knowledge, a scientist or your grandma? Okay, I'll give it to the scientist. Who has more wisdom, a 25-year-old scientist or your grandma? I'm taking grandma every
day.
single day.
All day.
And
grandma.
why? It's because she's lived it, dude. She went through it. You can read about it in a text.
Yeah.
And those things are important. Like you just said, they can change your mind. I'm having my mind constantly changed and awakened by things that I read. But as we well know, as any person on a spiritual path knows, there is a difference between intellectually understanding something and then integrating that thing into the level of your being. That is totally different. And your mind, again, reading can be the thing that kicks off that process, but it is not the process in and of itself.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
No, because I'm reading Anna's quote here.
Pasable el diablo por viejo que por sabio.
Oh, not bad. So I'll give the interpretation there.
Please.
The devil knows more for being old than for being wise.
There you go. And so on the heels of that, I love what you said there, man. And it's like, we are under the impression now that we have more knowledge about anything, any and everything that we've ever had, and we're the most advanced humans that have ever existed. Meanwhile, we're destroying the planet, but let's set that aside for a moment.
Can I just say bullshit?
And when you hear about these Native American societies, and even Mayan, Aztec, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, whatever, the pyramids exist, okay? And scientists, certain people, there are entire History Channel shows dedicated to how did they possibly move this heavy rock? Just as a concrete
and they're
example.
still, it's incredible, and they're still learning so much about those pyramids. They're still
I
trying to.
know.
Even the timeline, even the timeline right now is has been thrown into question because
Mm.
they have this whole timeline of Egypt. I mean, there's a lot of more recent work that's saying that they could be like 10,000 years old.
There you go. And so, and even honestly, something like COVID is kind of an example of like, well, maybe we don't have all this stuff figured out as much as
Yeah,
as much as we thought we did. Um, and what you are describing in that Native American way of living is a way of harmoniously living, not just with the day-to-day events that occur in your life and things that may frustrate you, but in fact a holistic, harmonious way of living with
yeah,
all of nature and all of the environment.
yeah,
And so when you think about energy and positive and negative energy and vibrations and things like that, which is a bit of a vague science as far as I'm concerned, but again, I'm not a scientist. Um, but like you said, when somebody walks into a room and they can really brighten up a room, well, there's some scientific thing going on there, but also it's just tangible. You can feel it. Or if somebody's really in a bad mood, are you okay? Like you can kind of tell without them necessarily. Like Anna had a comment there where what she said, body language and facial expressions are also very communicative. Even
that's
they can
true.
be deceitful at times. She
Yeah,
does mention.
that's a good point.
But that's part of a person's communication as well. So given that there's definitely energy fields that you can feel in a tangible way, think about, and this is so upsetting that I I hardly like to mention it, but if you are a pig and you've grown up in a pen your entire life and you've never been allowed to roam around at all,
Hmm.
and you're stuffed in, and that's your entire existence in a dark cave, and then you're the only thing you've known is like complete fear and being horrified. That's your entire existence. Then you get killed in presumably a rather horrifying manner. Certainly not a ritualistic, appreciating the. No, you're in a factory farm. Then you ship it to the store, and here's me eating pork chops.
Yeah,
Now, wouldn't you say there's probably some bad vibes attached to that pig who
yeah,
was having a every it was like petrified every moment of its entire life,
yeah.
and now I'm consuming all of these things? Again, that seems a little spacey, but
It does, but it doesn't. It's kind of weird because I think it's spacey because I like pork chops. If
yeah,
I
like
if I hated pork chops, I think I'd be able to dive in there. But here's the thing, and I got it. I mean, let's just say, and remember, we know we don't know. That's the foundation. So, but I could think about that, and it makes sense because there's even now science is saying, and it's kind of, it. I'm not trying to beat up on science, but it kind of sucks that for me to talk about and anybody to talk about and not get the wink wink kind of thing. You got to say science says, science says,
you always got to
like
check
to be
in with
like
science.
science says, I'm not crazy. Science says, like why? But that's the world we live in. Okay, here we
Yeah,
go.
right.
I'm talking in the context of where we live,
Mhm.
and science says that I completely don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So no, but even they're saying like trauma is passed on generationally, like biologically.
Mhm.
So if we as humans and we pass on biologically that kind of stuff, I mean, is it that crazy to say you could get some anxiety from eating meat from a life that was anxious and petrified when it was living? I don't think that's like cuckoo talk. I don't know, how far that goes. Once it's dead, is it, I don't know, but is there something in there? I don't know, But even that is thought provoking. Very thought provoking. Because I do have moods that are unexplainable sometimes. And I've spoken. I think we've spoken about it here even. And maybe that's a source. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm learning more. And Isabel, my sister, she's very into nutrition now, and she's making that her profession, and I'm really noticing the effects of different herbs and different I'm doing these shake smoothies, and I put in this mixture of all these mushrooms. There's like 8 of them, and then I put this turmeric mix in there,
Oh, that
like
stuff's
a
good for you.
spoon.
What type,
And
what type of mushrooms you eating there, Mike? You get a lion's mane?
Yeah,
You
all
know,
that stuff.
reishi?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like eight of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then there's this other blend, and then with the cacao, and it's like I basically put a heavy spoon of a mix of all these things right in there. And let me tell you, man, it's instant. Right away, like I feel focused. I feel it's not a joke. It's not like I'm not, and it blew me away because I heard about this and then I tried it, and then that kind of you get on this journey of like now I bought a bunch of teas because now I'm like sort of more of a believer in I'm reading about the Indians. I'm reading about the stuff they were doing and this and it's now I'm like more open to like what you said.
And even there are lots of ancient Chinese remedies that, and again, what do we do in the West? Oh, you go to a doctor and he prescribes you OxyContin. Oh, yeah, that's going to solve your problems. Somebody says the ETs facepalm themselves daily watching us. And this is something we've talked about before too, but gut biome has way more to do with mood and personality than is currently known. We talked about that a couple weeks ago where I said like, I can feel it in my gut. Ivan here says life is amoral, it seems. Just watch a couple of minutes of National Geographic. I would disagree with that. Because, of course, the National Geographic show is on television and it's showing you the antelope that's getting chased down by the wolves. But the wolves move in packs. I don't know that there's too many types of animals that roam around as independent. If it were amoral, they'd be independent agents who, screw you, all this. What the National Geographic show only sometimes shows you. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's penguins that they're like in little couples and they carry the egg across like 9,000 miles of ice or whatever. There is compassion and there is love there too. Just because they're hunting down and eating something doesn't necessarily mean they're amoral. It just means that they're hungry, I guess. And we have, unfortunately, pushed to the side. Well, I don't want to have to kill the pig. So it's how much easier is it to not care about what you're eating when you yourself weren't involved in the process of having to kill it. It's probably a lot easier to have that holistic approach to appreciating what it is you are consuming if you yourself were the one who had to do it.
I agree with you because, gosh, I can't remember this guy's name, but I watched a video and I mentioned him to Ivan, and Ivan said he knew of him. He's a scientist, and he did these studies, and he used monkeys, and basically it's a circle of like theme song from the Lion King. So basically, there's long story short, especially because I can't remember the guy's name, but the long story short of what this guy uncovered is kind of like there's everything within the animal kingdom. There's just like us. There's ones who kill each other.
Right.
Okay. There's ones who will take care of each other. They even treat. This is incredible. Wish I could remember his name. He gave this amazing. It was like to a graduation class. That's when I discovered him. You know me with names. But he's super famous. And they even did this thing where they did controlled experiments, where they saw animals who would, like, let's say if a monkey, in the group was attacked for no reason by like the dominant males or whatever, or they would run and help that one. All of them. After it finished, all of the monkeys would come tend to him, to his wounds. But now if he was a troublemaker and he went out there and he was picking on people and he was doing bad stuff and then he got his butt kicked, they don't help. So there's so much, that I think to and this is just, I think to just limit, I think it's convenient for like Darwinism and, the criticism a lot of people have about academia is the same they have about religion. It's like they get knowledge and then they try to fit it into their narrative. And I think it fits better with survival of the fittest, and to like this disconnect. Now, what if animals have emotions? What if they're like way smarter than we thought? Oh, that doesn't fit, So I think that, like you said, they pick these things. It's more exciting. The kill. Animals are just this. Well, no, not really. Animals, they show compassion. They do things that are unusual, like that we think are unusual because we're so ignorant. The truth,
Right.
It's only unusual because we're so damn ignorant that we think they're just savages. I mean, for God's sakes, we thought the Native Indians were savages.
Right.
I mean, how dumb are we? We're constantly making these stupid mistakes and generalizations, and I think we're kind of doing it, but this is the thing. This is splitting thinking. Like, for life to be sustained, it has to be taken. So if we were to just take it at that, yeah. But look at how the natives looked at it. It's like, yeah, it has to be taken. But if you take it in a way where you understand it has to be taken, and it doesn't have to be this or that. It doesn't have to be like animals are savages or animals are just wonderful and beautiful. What if animals are a lot more like us, where some animals are complete assholes and some are just really have good energy and some don't?
I mean, that has to be true.
Why not? But it's always, this splitting thinking. I'm always gonna hate that. I'm always gonna talk about it. That's my soapbox. Splitting thinking sucks. It's trash. Throw it
true.
away.
It's true.
It's just pointless. It doesn't do anything.
We got a ton of comments.
I don't know about that.
I don't even know where to begin.
I got beef with this. I didn't even finish reading it. Animals don't see right or wrong when killing another animal. They see. Do we know that? How do you know that? How could you possibly, as a scientist, know that? How do you know if the animal? I mean, the natives, they knew maybe it's not right or wrong. Maybe you're right in a way. Maybe they're just seeing they have to do this to survive. Obviously, I'm doing it every night in my kitchen. I'm just not doing the killing. So,
and to take it back to language, it might not be just the act of killing and having to take life in order to sustain it, but it's how you feel about it, the intent of it. And I would imagine that the average wolf, when they are eating, is probably more thankful than the average American who's having a donut from Dunkin' Donuts. We you just put it in your mouth and you're like, I got so many other things to worry about. Oh my gosh, whatever. Have you ever thought about where all of the ingredients to a donut comes from? Never once in my goddamn life have I ever thought, wow, I wonder where the flour was grown. Are there flour in donuts? I don't even know. I think so. But a wolf who chased down an antelope for 45 minutes,
he started
at the age like, thank God.
So the thing is, it's actually, it can't, and I kind of take that back because I was kind of being a splitting thinker. It's not so simple. It's none of it is. None of it is it right or wrong? Are we projecting on the animals? The truth is, it's probably a little bit of everything, and trying to take a side on something is just pointless.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and look, that's what we're saying is this kind of holistic approach of, and again, Alan Watts would say these kind of splitting thinking questions are often framed in the wrong way. Is it nature versus nurture? It's a single process. He always says, he keeps mentioning in the book, the head-tailed cat. that our lives are like looking through a narrow slit in a fence, and a cat walks by, and we see the head, then we see the middle, then we see the tail, and it walks by. We first time we see the head, then we see the. So we think, well, the head that causes the tail. Well, no. If you were able to knock down the fence and look at the whole thing, it's one big giant process. So then your intent and how you feel about things is important with regard to how you engage with that process.
All right, hold on.
What you got?
Ivan's triggering me.
At the end of the episode,
All right, the dichotomy of right and wrong does not exist. Well, that guy that I'm talking about, he proved that wrong. I'll send you the footage. It's complete science of right and wrong. Because why would they? Why the example I said about the monkeys and how differently they treated the one who was a complete a-hole, who deserved to get his butt kicked. That shows they know right and wrong, and that's what's so amazing about his work, because it's showing this
They have a sort of moral
this
code.
dogmatic scientific thing, and he even talks about it that they thought for many years. And science is always correcting itself. It's always learning. As you always talk about that, Ivan. And I will disagree with that, and I'll use scientific evidence to completely disagree with
Well,
you.
yeah, I think there are like they've studied like gorillas and monkeys and things that they need to work as a group. So if a person or if an individual in the group like goes against their hierarchical code, or their like code as a group, then you get outcast or whatever, and you can't. Johnny Whitfield here says we kind of have to accept the whole thing and not cherry pick the action that we can comprehend. Which I'll tell you what, don't we often do that? Yeah. And that is in line with harmonizing with the totality of existence, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's panoramic equanimity. That if somebody comes into work, right, and they're pissed off, and then they're mean to you, and anywhere in life, we take that single action of what they said to us, like this again, how language is limited, and we say, wow, what an asshole, forget that person. When if you were to actually consider the totality of their existence and where they are coming from, what so often gets lost in language is intent, which is on top of body language. The intent is very, very, it's maybe the most important thing. But nobody's an asshole in a vacuum. Like there is, like maybe you woke up, like there's a myriad reasons why it led you to this mental state where you had some aggression pour out of your head. Yeah. And that what we do is we cherry pick the little thing that comes directly at us without considering the totality of the situation.
I remember in an episode you went into that. I think something happened with you. You gave a personal story. It was in the early episodes. It's like in the first 5 episodes.
It's because somebody got upset at me at work.
Yes.
And it was bullshit. I did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But it took me a couple hours. But I was eventually able to see the totality of the situation, that it was a very tense time at work where things were very high strung because things were very important going on. And not admittedly immediately, but after a few hours, I was able to offer that olive branch to that person.
Boom.
Because the comments are blowing up here, Mike.
Yeah, there's so many. I don't know which one to pick.
Johnny first did woohoo, because I think he was agreeing with the point that we were making. Ivan then said who, or WHO. Nowadays we always talk about them. And John said, my bad, I meant like Ric Flair. I go, woo! Big old the chop across the chest type of a woo.
So we got a lot of good comments here. Ivan says there's a pecking order, so that's something to consider. Yeah.
And what's Anna got here? Honestly, we can't assume that animals are not sentient beings that have no thought process or feelings behind their actions. I would agree. I don't think we can necessarily assume that. And to your point, Mike, too, how do you measure that? Okay, you can measure their brain waves or whatever, but honestly, the only way to ask a turtle how he feels is to ask him, and he needs to tell you. And we don't have that language just yet. Hopefully someday we will. If you ask me, there's sometimes a higher moral code in the wild than in civilized society.
Maybe.
Can I just do one of these?
We got to bomb that. Oh, now I can put the bomb.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. We have the technology now to do it.
We have the technology.
All right, I got to put the bomb. That's coming.
Well, I think Anna from the 3-point line on that one. I think you could agree. I think you could make a strong argument that humans might be, if there is a hierarchy of moral codes, we're not at
Yeah,
the top of that, man.
yeah,
We
yeah.
are not. I
Well,
wish that we were.
I'm gonna dare say. I mean, I'm gonna for the next episode. I'm gonna find out this guy's name because he blew me away with. And I even went on to read more stuff online about him. But me and names. So it fits my personality though. I did a personality test,
You did.
and yeah, and the fact that I don't remember names, it completely fits my type. So there's a whole thing behind it. But
You've got science to support this fact.
yes, we have science. So yeah, man. No. What the hell was I talking about?
I was talking about like the hierarchy of the moral code, and that we humans are not particularly at the top.
I would say it's more similar. I'm gonna even dare say, and I love Anna's point because it kind of pushes you in this direction. But I'm gonna say from what I was watching about this guy, and all the research he's done, it almost seems the same. And this even fits with what the natives are saying. You know, the indigenous are kind of saying we're connected. We're the 2-legged, they call us, and those are the 4-legged, and we're connected. It's not like, you know, and they felt everything within the animal kingdom. You know, they used everything. If they killed an animal, they used everything. They didn't spare anything. It was like, we're not going to waste your life. You know, we're going to use everything we possibly can. And I think it's more the same.
I would agree with you, man.
I think some animals flip out. And, you know, the way some of us flip out and just kill a bunch of people, I think some animals flip out. They just go nuts in the pack. Some animals get shunned and thrown out of the pack. It's very human-like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a desire to be above, you know, like on top of the food chain.
Right, we are more sophisticated.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing for us, you know, even within cultures and within nationally, and even within your country, you know, these people, those people, these are the better people. I'm, you know, and I think that is what kind of kills a clear view of things. A more honest view, and we all will look. Much as I hate splitting thinking, I was about to fall into it right here on our show, and it's stuff that's embedded it's in the programming.
Tough. Yeah,
I mean, I've hacked it a little, you know,
Right.
I've hacked it, the programming, but it's still there.
It's
you know,
still
I'm
running.
still operating on Bill Gates' Windows 10. You know, I'm still operating on that. You know, but I've got some stuff I've put in there. I've changed some code. But I haven't changed every line yet. You know,
That's right. That takes time.
that takes lots of time, and I'm probably not going to get to that. I'm still too busy trying to make an intro or an outro, which I still haven't done the outro. So we only have an intro. So you guys
That's a good point.
who missed the intro, you're going to get to see it again.
Yeah, you got to pop back to that.
Yeah, once we wrap up, we're gonna see that again.
Well,
yeah,
Mike, what do you think? I think we did pretty well
I think
today.
we did great. I would like to. I don't know. I really liked this. I read it this morning. Just throw it out there, and then maybe we can wrap up and show that intro again.
Sounds good.
It's from the Tao Te Ching. It's 39, and I liked it because I've been, going in and out of, like, we go up and down. I want to do this, I want to do that, and this ambition, this thinking that we're stuck in, and that's what I love about the Tao. It always humbles me and kind of puts me back. So if anybody needs a little humbling, check this out. Ancients who have attained oneness. The sky attained oneness and became clear. Earth attained oneness and became peaceful. The gods attained oneness and became divine. The valley attained oneness and became full. The 10,000 creatures attained oneness and flourished. This actually goes with what we've been talking about. Didn't do it on purpose. Lords and kings attained oneness and became leaders. In other words, if the sky were not clear, I'm afraid it would break apart. If earth were not peaceful, I'm afraid it would erupt. If the gods were not wise, I'm afraid they would disappear. If the valley were not full, I'm afraid it would be used up. If the 10,000 creatures were not growing, I'm afraid they would be wiped out. If lords and kings were not high up, I'm afraid they will fall. High rank has its origin in low value. The high has its foundation in the low. Thus lords and kings call themselves orphaned, lonely, and hungry. Isn't this because the root of high rank is low value? Isn't it? Many honors is the same as no honor. Don't desire to be precious like jade. Be common like rock. And I like this because to me, it's like a mathematical problem when they go and they finally figure it out, and then they just slash, click, click, and they cancel out everything, and then they point at something, and that's it. That's the answer. That's what he did to me spiritually. He went to the high, he went to the low. If this wasn't that, then this wouldn't happen. You look at everything, and then he says, don't kill yourself trying to be this or that. The valley's the valley. You're you. And it's not so great to be at the top of the food chain because they're the most lonely. That's it. To be at the high, you have to come from the low. So you have to use the low to be the high. So he just X'd everything out. And then at the end he says, don't desire to be precious like jade. Be common like rock. And that's, and then if you think about it even deeper, which I did because I have just was kind of learning about a lot of ancient structures and how mathematical they are and how they line up with astrology, and they're made of stone because of the resonation. It resonates a certain way. So you go into a lot of these very old structures that were built like for religious purposes or connected to astrology, and they give off these tones, and stone resonates and builds these things, and they're like kind of like architectural harmony, kind of. They're built in such ways that they set these tones. And then he said rock, oneness, thinking of the tones, the positioning of these old temples and things with all this stuff in mind, and acknowledging that we don't know that much more than our ancestors, even though our technology is, we think, advanced, but then we don't know, because there's even people who question that, because how they've built these things is still a wonder. So there could have been more technology, but we just don't have proof of it,
Well, I think that's a great passage, Mike, and it reminds me too of Watts, that distinction is not separation. And that there are many different things that make up a wheel on your car, the rubber and the lug nut and all those things. But it doesn't make one more important than the other necessarily. One may have more material substance, but as we talk about constantly on the show, that has absolutely nothing to do with a person's mental state. And that, in fact, if the lug nut does not do the lug nut thing, the whole wheel is busted.
Yeah.
That's and it. So, don't let the American value system tell you because you don't have a pair of Nikes, you're no good.
Exactly.
You've got to play your part. And as like we said a couple weeks ago on the show, actually, all we can really do is bring love and compassion into the world. That's how we harmonize with what is presented to us. And that's how we play our part. And in fact, that's not only the best thing to do, it's kind of the only thing you can do. But that's not upsetting. It's, in fact, quite beautiful, because it means, of course, you're never more than one step away from the spiritual path. And it means that every moment of every day, you can do the right thing.
I'll take it. And with that, we're gonna play the intro for the outro for the first and probably last time ever, because I promise by next week I will have an outro ready. Here we go. let's get this unmuted and we're going.
Go hand in mind.
See you guys next time.
Mountain we can climb.
Time to make the donut. Time to make the donut. Time to make the donut. Time to make the donut.
Make